Yeah, that'd be great.
Is that people are supposed to give a 90-second pitch on what their business model is. And myself and Shay and actually Dan, you should pitch in on this one as well, and Gary should pitch in on it, but anybody else should pitch in on it. So the idea is the 90-second pitch, and then four minutes of brutal feedback from myself, Shay, Gary, Dan, whoever. So the first question is, who wants to volunteer to be first? Because we don't have a first volunteer, this goes nowhere.
Yeah. Come on, you were all brave like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I'll throw one out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a nice
So you've got to use the canvas. As I'm drawing the canvas, I will just give a few tips to get us going. So use Post-its, write down as you're going.
Okay, you've got the pen.
Grab some pens and Post-its there. I'm going to start drawing the canvas. Customers, relationship. Sorry, that's the wrong thing. That is the value proposition. That's a gift. Channel. Money. Resources. That's a gold bar. And activities is a shovel. And partners. And I'll write that up. So one Post-it at a time as you go.
So what's the format? Do I just talk? You're going to write, or
describe your business model and write your Post-its as you describe it. So you'll only get through one or two. Okay.
Anyone who gets this done in 90 seconds.
Have you seen my writing? Okay, well, I want to speak about the 90 seconds has not started.
Does anyone have a timer?
I'm going to speak about a project I worked on in the university where I did a feasibility study. So it's quite early stage, but the business model side of it, thankfully with a lot of EI feasibility, you can kind of ignore some of the business model stuff. So we'll throw out the one that we've had over coffee, which is, so the software is, it's a group that studied what's called prosody in human voice, and they're going to apply it in the aviation industry, and it's going to enable the aviation training industry to measure how pilots can communicate with one another. So we have envisaged that there's going to be an application that the trainer will go into a sim, and so pilots do a sim check every 6 months, and the trainer will go in and will be able to monitor as pilots are speaking whether they're following standard operating procedures, and so to be pitches in their voices or not. And it will enable the industry to put a metric on communication skills in the aviation sector. So you're going to have me on. Thanks, Al. You're a legend. So the business model really. We're starting by saying, well, we'll sell this, we'll license this to aviation training companies. They'll pay a hefty license, or they'll do per session, so per training session. And there's an amazing aviation training sector or company up in Dublin Airport, and we were leaving there at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and two Pakistani guys get out of the car to go in and do 2 hours training. I was like, this is amazing. This place keeps turning over at all hours of the night, just to keep those machines, because machines cost about 20 million euros each. So we figured, well, if we're going to solve a big problem, we should charge a lot. So that's the customer. The relationship, we're probably going to have to go to channel partners, simply because the startup has no credibility with the aviation sector, and it's a very closed industry in some respects. So,
and you're 90 seconds.
I know.
That's it.
Okay. Did you learn anything?
Okay, I'll give you the feedback in 90 seconds, and just in terms of mood.
Sure.
The first thing is, I just thought, oh my God, here's a feature, it's not a product. And next thing is, you were talking the whole thing and understand what the problem was, as opposed to the guys around the coffee thing saying, wouldn't it be cool if. The third thing is, I thought aviation, I've invested in aviation, it's a really tough space, and I thought, no, it's a lousy sector. Fourth thing, I know the guy who runs the aviation simulator, and I know how tough it has been. That's confirmed everything I knew about it. So,
I'm out.
you're right.
I get me coach.
But the biggest thing is, you know, you really have to sell the problem first. That's the big thing. Like, you got to convince people early on that there's a high value problem that you think you can solve. So I think you always have to start from the problem.
Can I add that in now, just as for feedback? The problem in the industry is that pilots do a sim check every 6 months, and everyone gets 3 out of 5. So, because airlines are short on pilots, there's a drought of pilots. Asia is doubling its capacity, and so pilots are getting away big checks up overseas. So the industry's got a big problem, particularly in Western Europe. And the problem in terms of the sim check, there are pilots who are bullies on the flight deck. So certain airlines will not hire certain nationalities because they just don't work. So we'll take a Ryanair example. They put a Ukrainian guy and a Spanish guy. What type of day, working day they're going to have? We put a Dutch guy and an Italian guy. What type of day are they going to have? And I can see Ron wondering there. So this tool will enable them, will give them a metric that. So when it comes to measuring these guys, they can say, well, actually, you only got 31%. Based on our voice analysis, so you're grounded.
Okay, so how would you write that as on a post-it? So it's measure something to do with sim checks, is what I understand?
Human voice metrics.
Human voice metrics.
Yes.
That's the. How does that articulate the problem?
Oh, sorry. To articulate the problem,
Yeah.
the problem is lack of metrics within pilot training.
Leads to what?
But who
What's
cares?
the problem?
Yeah.
The problem is they end up with more accidents. So 70% of aviation disasters are caused by a failure of what's called CRM training, crew resource management, where pilots don't get on. So 70% of planes that go down are accidents. That's a big, yeah.
So,
And that's a Boeing stat.
It's a cute.
so reduce the 70% of what failures? How would you say that?
Of human communication failures on the flight deck.
Of
So then
comms.
just the credibility of the link between your solution and actually fixing that problem, how strong that is.
Yeah, good question.
So the expression of that to me is that human communication failures cause 70% of accidents.
Correct.
And there's no way to measure human communication effectiveness for pilots right now.
Exactly, and that's what this company or the startup is saying. They'll have a measure for that.
Cool.
So this is the only industry this could apply to? Is there any other industry this could be applied to?
Absolutely. So CRM is maybe again just the pitch because I just wanted to jump up and throw something onto the floor. CRM, crew resource management. That was really brought into play post the Staines disaster. I think it was Staines, the famous flight, or the guys from IBEC were Staines. Yeah, thank you. I don't know what year was. Did you know? Do you know what year? In the 70s, anyway. So crew resource management is about the ability to challenge the first officer being able to challenge the captain. And so with that, they've actually taken it within the Gulf War in 91. 20% of flights never took off because of failures in maintenance. So the US military invented MRM, which is maintenance resource management. So the ability for the guy who's just fixing the wheel to say to his team leader, actually, you're wrong. So it's moved now into surgery and into a surgical environment as well.
Okay. Well, let's give someone else a chance. Thanks very much.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Who wants to come up next? I'll great going down. I will be the lovely assistant. I think that works better. And for feedback, I know I think it's helpful to describe what you guys understood and didn't, and keep that about the presentation of the idea as well. So that'll judging it as a communication method, right? As a communication tool.
Okay, just quickly, my name is Karen Thornhill. I have a software development company in the Digital Depot up on Thomas Street. This isn't so much my business, my own business, but this is an idea we kind of worked on the side, right?
Okay.
So, basic problem is there are 5,000 heart attacks in Ireland every year, right? And the first 5 minutes after a heart attack is kind of critical to get either, you have to get defibrillation or somebody there to do some life-saving equipment. Ireland's got a fairly poor response time by European averages of getting people on the scene. So it's basically using technologies like smartphone devices to get trained responders to the scene as soon as possible. So what we're talking about is the people all over Ireland, really, Order, Malta and various, they've got life training facilities. Get those people who have smartphones onto the system registered. When someone has a heart attack, it goes through the 911 services. It goes through like a web service we have and identifies people within the area using GPS or whatever other means and gets them to the scene as quickly as possible. And also, there's defibrillators all over the country as well, and they're in the process of mapping those. So if you get that information together and get it all to the scene as soon as possible, you can save lives. I suppose the stakeholders would be the government, because they've got an incentive to get their response times under 8 minutes by European law, right? And they're failing on that. Other response.
Are they would you say they're a customer or a partner?
It's difficult. I suppose the problem we have is we haven't really got anyone interested. There's no money. There's no model. The business model is the big issue here. How do you actually turn this into a paying model? So either you get corporate social responsibility in major companies to sponsor this, or how do you turn it into a product? Is that 90 seconds, was it?
That was 90 seconds.
Okay.
So actually, I thought that was pretty good. I understood pretty clearly what the problem was, what the value of the problem was. I think that you correctly identified what the whole is and what the piece that you don't have in your business model canvas is right now. So, I don't think obviously you have to figure that out, but that's not why we're here. So.
Yeah, well, there are various, we have looked at various models. Like I said, you could go with corporate social responsibility where you get somebody in to support it, or we had looked at maybe charging people to sign up, but you're not going to charge people who are responding to events. They're not going to pay a subscription. You're asking them to do something out of the ordinary, so you can't charge them for that. So it is a big hole, but how do you fill it? That's where advice would be welcome.
In terms of, again, sort of your critique on the communication on United, for some reason, maybe it's because the area is kind of a do-good area, it's an important area, so it was very appealing. I think and it looked as if you were really trying to solve a national problem, which is the right sort of place to be. And the other, as you weren't selling it, and therefore, as somebody said, if you're trying to get an investor involved, ask him for advice and you get the money, ask him for money and you get advice.
Yeah.
So without wasting people's time, there was a nice angle, just pure communication.
Yeah.
That you got into the opportunity and then said, I haven't figured it out.
Yeah, well, to be quite honest, it's not really a project, but it's something we've been looking at, but because we haven't identified the money, we just kind of put it to the side. So
but it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And very often you get, people have half-formed ideas, and it's tough. You have to be careful with investors because you don't want to waste their time.
Yeah.
But if you can get them to think about what your problem is, you have a kind of emotional engagement that actually moves the discussion later. If you do develop it, and you come back, you've strengthened the emotional engagement.
It also communicates to an investor that you're what VCs will often call coachable, right? Yeah. Which means that you're a guy who will listen. The fact that you're asking questions indicates that you want to hear answers and you want to talk about what the answer might be. And so that is actually a good communication tool.
Yeah, I find it useful when, like when there's a gap that you just say, I'm not sure. It's like, I don't know how to reach these people, or I haven't spoken to them, or I haven't nailed out, so this came quite late. Yeah. And I thought that actually it's like somebody in government will be buying this, but I haven't figured that out.
They may or may not. The government is unlikely to be the customer because I can't imagine they'd have the, the kind of more, at the moment they wouldn't have the.
Okay. And then I also got confused with when you talked about reaching people through phones, because then it's like, so I assumed that was reaching customers somehow because I hadn't understood it.
Well, it's reaching the responders, people that are trained as to deliver CPR.
Right. Okay.
They're kind of.
Okay. So then we had, and you did mention responders as someone to reach. Okay.
So the CPR devices, who sells those?
Oh, defibrillators. You talking about, oh, it's not, they're sold like in GAA clubs all over the country, you know, health clubs, they're all over the country already.
And once they're used, you throw them away or do they?
No, they're just left. They're left in locations all over the country.
There's
Yeah.
potentially somebody to pay for it.
Yeah,
Because they
it's
should
true,
be
but
used more often.
they're generally there as a, you know, say if somebody has, a footballer has, you know, a heart attack on the football pitch, they're there in the club to respond to it. But they're just dotted, like people, you know, charities buy them and they leave them all over the place. But I don't think there's a very effective way of getting them to the scene of an incident very quickly. So this would kind of tie in with that as well.
A lot of businesses have them as well.
Yeah, very much so. I think we're going to give you like a taxi drivers or something like that to stick them in the back of their car. That would be one route.
Oh.
Maybe you could get like a taxi company or something like that to become a partner with it, and they would generate very positive PR out of it. And you know, all their guys are on the road already. They can get to seen very quickly. So that could be a potential.
Is there anything similar anywhere else in the world at all?
Yeah, Israel's got great. They've got a couple of things. Herzl, I think they've got a really good response for various reasons. They've got a lot of very quick responders that hop on mopeds and drive out very quickly. The States has got an open source one on the West Coast. I can't remember the name exactly, but it's just like an open app. It's really, it gets all of the emergency calls, and you can just. It's kind of a bit weird that anyone can pick up their phone and see these emergency calls, which is probably wouldn't watch in Ireland. True, you know, for various issues, like people are a bit precious about, you know ambulance chasers or whatever. So, but yeah, the West Coast of the States.
That's a perfect target market. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Lawyers, you know, the person that claims injury.
All right. Cool. Another thing to add?
No.
Okay. Should we? Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'm starting a project in the digital reach. That's the Digital Skills Academy downstairs from Gary. We have a project starting on it in 2 or 3 months, so hopefully that'll progress. But, we'll see.
Anyone else? Come on down.
Yeah, we're actually kind of made pivot at the moment, so it'd be great to get some feedback on a slight change in direction we're considering. And thanks for the help. I only have one hand, so I think I'll get about double the 90 seconds. So what we're currently, we started? Yeah. Our new mission at the moment is to help startup healthcare companies better manage cumbersome compliance processes, because we all know in this sector, especially getting a new drug or device to market often costs about $1 billion to the big guys. Now the small guys have similar levels of legislation to get through, but they don't have the same big pockets or the same big resources. So we're trying to help them really reduce the time and cost commitment of doing this through using our compliance document management software, which unlike the common alternatives used by these companies, you have like Dropbox, Google Docs, and still even paper files, completely automates document workflow and compliance data recording. Because I've spoken to a few people in the last week, and one of them actually told me he was the CEO and founder of this, a medical device company here in Dublin. It was causing him so much personal pain through his lack of time growing his company. He was recently considering hiring somebody at €20,000 a year salary just to manage this and take it off his plate. And I've confirmed this with 3 or 4 other companies. So what we're hoping to do is sell it as a software as a service subscription online. So that's our here. And our channels are through our website, as in we have a web presence, but we do believe that this is a very good area for channel partners who are consultants into these companies, because this is a very big space with a lot of expertise, and we think they will fall in and help us with channel partners. That is trying to fill up most of the boxes. Yeah, that's.
Sorry, you said a channel partner, right?
Yeah, it's probably a mix of our consultants into these companies and through our website and our direct sales.
Okay.
That's it. Most of it.
So I think we did get to the understanding of the problem, but maybe the order needs to be flipped there, because you kind of started talking about features more than more than the problem, and who the customers or who the people with the problem are. The other thing is, I never got. You did talk about what it meant to people in terms of value, but I never got any sense of what the overall potential and scale of the market is. You know, how many people have this.
We're just about to start working on that. It was actually 2 days ago we finally decided to go for that. So, yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, and I think I just felt again, look, I'm giving you 90 seconds communications, not even talking about the underlying, what I think of the business is. It just seems down to lots of generalities. You know, the words were all kind of a bit unfocused. I think once you talked about that whole regulatory process, it's huge, it's highly compliant, you know, it's very demanding, and I kept asking, who are you? And in any case, if you're addressing an area like that, people see, yeah, there's a problem, but it's kind of a big problem, and it's going to be difficult to get to. You should very quickly, before you can get to the problem is first up front, but before that you should have, I think, maybe 2 sentences of who you are, and establish your credibility. Just, you know, I've done X, Y, and Z, bang, stop. Then this is the problem. But just get much more acute. Your words were too general, and you spent too long. And you addressed it 3 different times in the 90 seconds. So. That's it. Sorry. That's
brilliant. Yeah. Actually, as well, if you'd love to, we're trying to build a list of people in like the medical devices and small startup pharmas. So, if any of you have in your portfolio companies or new people, we'd love to meet them for coffee sometime.
It is actually a big problem. You're right.
The other thing which is kind of related to what Chase just said is that I didn't get a clear sense of, if you like, what your unique value was, because this is a crowded space in the sense that there's 100 companies with some form of doc management solution. So like what's special? I didn't hear you kind of tell me what's special about what you guys can do versus what everybody else can do, or what you think they're not doing.
Yeah, well, it's essentially it's built around managing policies and procedures in a way that workflow is built into the actual system. So there's no thinking about what needs to be done. There's a natural progression of steps, and at each point, all important compliance data is recorded and stored, which doesn't happen in cost-effective solutions available at the moment.
I think that last point is just to share it. One guy put it to me about a decade. Sam Nagy, the guy in Horizon, is a really good thinker. He's a biologist, ecologist originally, but he was an IT guy. Very successful. He said very quickly, you have to figure out, are you in the polar region where it's all about husbanding resources, meaning you're a trailblazer, or you're in the Amazonian rainforest where you've got predators, meaning it's share of market. There are other competitors. And very quickly, you have to say, which is it? Because if it's the Amazonian, Brian's point there is there are lots of people in the States. There are lots of people. So you're in the Amazonian rainforest. You have to figure out your competitive position versus everybody else and get to it quickly. In other cases, if you're out there and it's a whole new idea, it's a whole new segment, you're the trailblazer, that's different. But when you make the pitch to guys like us, we're trying to figure out which it is, even though we're maybe not explicit in ourselves. But you need to guide it, which is it?
Severe never heard of polar bears.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Some of the things I'll add is, if you've read Business Model Generation, is one of these books that people don't like. It's not meant to be read all the way through, like as page to page. But towards the back, there's a thing about the business model environment, and this is sometimes useful. So I've simplified the environment, but basically covering customer needs, competition, trends, and market size. Might be, like you guys mentioned, that type of stuff. So that might be useful here as well. So I just added those in. If we've got time for one more. All right, you guys need to fight it out, I guess.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, ladies first. Sure.
Dan's VC. What the
I want to be hammered by the VC.
Okay. Ready when you are? Okay, so every single day we hear about newspapers and magazines falling apart and disappearing, and they're all going away and going under. But we're also spending a lot of money on digital goods. We're spending a lot of money on digital books and magazines and newspapers. So why are all these companies going away? Well, it comes down to the lack of tools. And in my experience working with publishers and digital goods, There are no tools, there's not a single tool that allows you to create a digital publication and publish it to ebooks, to the web, to iPads, to Kindle, to everything. So we're building Whoopi, write only once, publish it everywhere, and Whoopi allows you to design applications, or design your publication really easily and publish it to, and syndicate it to everywhere. I think you hit 90 seconds.
So way off 90 seconds.
Really? Oh, wow. I was nervous, I was talking fast, sorry.
Maybe talk through who the customers are, how you reach them.
Our customers are publishers, so they're everyone from newspaper publishers to magazine publishers to indie publishers to mom and pop shops. If you can use something like Tumblr, then you can use our system. My mom can write a magazine with our system, which is pretty cool.
How does it generate revenue?
We have several revenue sources. So one way is if we host your publication for you, we'll charge you a monthly fee for that. We also white label the system and we'll let people install it. So if you're a newspaper house, you can install it in-house and use that to create your publications, your daily newspaper, but also your once-off publications. Plus 90 seconds.
Nice.
It stops in the start.
So yes, those are the different customers. That's how we'll be making money through through hosting, through licensing, and through white label packaging.
Okay, so I think you did a good job of having a tight articulation of what it is that you do, and that's something that I believe the companies really need to work on, and it's not easy to get there. So I think you did a good job on that. Not wanting to stray too much into the idea, but I didn't think that you communicated really what the problem for these customers is.
Okay.
I wouldn't be convinced that their problem is that they can't write once and publish everywhere.
Okay.
Their problem is that their revenue streams are disappearing and it costs money to produce content.
Yeah, you're right.
So you weren't convincing on that, is what I would say from a communication point of view.
Okay. That's fair. Thanks.
Again, I just thought you were very quickly, and to go back to my last point, I thought you presented the problem, whether we agree with it or not is a different matter, but and then you had a very nice phrase, right once, a bit cliche, but at least it gets the idea very quickly, it's precise. And then you very nicely brought in who you were. I forget what you said, but you definitely established your credibility. You've been in the industry, so you've main knowledge. Immediately, I was thinking feature versus product, and nice to have. Big deal. How big is the market? But maybe that wasn't. I was moving to that, but you had absolutely established your credibility. You had raised the issue that one could engage with, so it was very effective.
Thanks.
I thought. And the fact that you actually had done it before about second. That's an interesting one. A little space. And you got other questions, good questions.
Yeah. So focusing on customers that we have would be better. Would as a question back to you, focusing on customers that we have, or customers that we want, or something like that, or numbers in the market.
Is it a real problem? How big a
problem? It's a huge problem. Yeah, everyone is paying. They're paying a ton of money to Adobe, and Adobe still don't have a solution for this. So everyone is locked into Adobe because they're the only player. There's no way to publish to other systems, and if you do, it's ugly and not interactive.
So you're a replacement to Adobe?
Well, yeah. It's in the long term. But yeah, someday.
So the one thing that I really like in a pinch, and I don't quite know where it sort of probably covers a few of the boxes there, is a story, right?
Yeah.
But it's really important though that it's a story that if you like, a lay audience can relate to.
Yeah.
It's a really great way as a communication tool to engage an audience, to be able to tell a story that they can relate to. And that might be about a customer, or about a customer that you want to have, or it might just be generically something that everybody in the room will have experience of.
Yeah.
So,
And one thing on this story bit, which I have an issue with the lean canvas, and is time. It doesn't capture a story as in what do you say, situation, describe the situation. What's the complication and what's the proposal? That's when I was a consultant, when you were trying to convince the client to buy it,
Yeah.
your idea. So complication, so time, the lean canvas, maybe it does, but very often small startups have to surf waves. So there has to be a big industry and something's happened, blah, blah, blah. That's the disruption or the complication.
Yeah.
And then there's the proposal and and things are, all the waves are in, and you're going to surf the waves. I just find, it's for a different session maybe, about the lean canvas, but it can be a bit static for people. They don't bring in the temporal effect.
So actually, there's two things that I want to ask you about, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
So with the time thing, I've seen people use it as, exactly as you put it, as static, but almost like a representation of a snapshot in time, and then use multiple canvases to show how they reckon their business model will evolve over time. So whether as they grow from one like a niche market to bigger markets, or as trends influence the needs of the industry, and so they're like, this is where we are now. They're not ready for us, but this is what we're doing to get in front of them. So I've seen that, but less in terms of presentation, more in terms of planning. So I don't know if that would answer.
Yeah, there's the history, it's the story. How did you get here?
Yeah, okay. So,
it would be nice to be able to get into that, as she said, this idea that something is driving a wave, if you know.
okay. Yeah, okay.
The trends, yes.
The
you're right
trends,
up
yeah.
there. What's
Okay, okay.
So maybe something like an analogy, not questioning the problem, but if it's something like, the apps business, that, we have all these multiple devices, and there's an industry about generating apps and getting them on all these different devices.
Yeah, that's a good fit, actually. I like that. I was going to say a publisher that I work with who's on the verge of closing, but that's more of a sadder story. This is kind of something that people can get on board with. Yeah.
The other thing, so when you're going through it, the one thing that caught me is you sort of listed off a bunch of segments, and I didn't think that, I couldn't see the matching of like, do newspapers really have the same needs as indie publishers? So that could have been spelled out a bit more.
Yeah. They're segments, so they all have the same general need, but each one has slightly different things.
Right.
But yeah.
I think that comes back to the time thing. It's which segment are you going to start with,
Yeah.
that you can get traction.
Yeah.
One thing like that, because of the timelines of PR marketing, just wonder what would be the ideal partners?
The ideal partners are magazines who are ready that need to be in more places. So there are a lot of magazines that are just saying we can't solve this problem and closing their doors, and we'd like to help them.
I know that's
The money's not there, though.
That's a customer, who would be channel partner to, or distribution partner.
The distribution, well, we would distribute it ourselves. So we'd help them get their magazines through the App Store, for example, to get it into newsstand. Help them use Kindle Direct Publishing so that they can have their. So we can manage channel publication, if that's what you mean, as well as hosting on the web and distribution and syndication that way.
I think the question is more, how do you reach your customers?
Oh, I see. Sorry.
And who might partner to help you do that?
Yeah.
To leverage on their existing relationships.
Yeah, but obviously we need a lot of help there. So we're working on that. We have some small partners here that we're working with, and hopefully once we get that feedback and take it on board, and we'll be able to go and start doing marketing. Thanks.
So do you want to try and sneak in?
I'm willing to sneak in because I want to be hammered by this.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right.
We'd be much more audacious with you.
Yeah, that's fine. So what I'm talking about really is a huge problem. Okay, I'm the CEO of a very small medtech startup. Okay, the huge problem is as follows: about 100 million people give blood every year in the world, but the reality is it's only in the Western world they give the blood. Right? If you're in the developing world, you just don't get blood, and if you do, you get whole blood. It's not separate. Here in Ireland, we got a centrifuge in St James's Hospital. All the blood flows in there. So there are not centrifuges all over the world, and our unique technology is the ability to take blood in 15 minutes here and separate it in 50 minutes into red blood cell packs, which is what you need. So we got this unique technology. Now my challenge is as follows. We can get this technology out, we can actually put it in blood banks, create blood banks in remote areas all over the world. But the question is, can you make money and do good at the same time? How do you attract an investor to invest in this proposition? So what we got is a technology that costs about 50 euros. We need it to cost about 10 euros to actually get it out there. How do you deal with people? The people who want to do good don't understand business. Whether it's Médecins Sans Frontières, the Red Cross, these people, they don't understand business. But yet, if you want to get that technology out there, you need to actually bring it forward. So this is the big challenge that I have in running a company. How do you attract money in to do good and make money? Thank you very much. I want to be up against these guys because I know that they've been very lenient with you.
I just didn't get down there again. Communications, is that a higher level? Is that a big kind of a philosophical issue about doing good and making money? I didn't, and then you brought it down to med tech.
Yeah.
I wasn't so sure what you're looking for really. Is it the business problem of this particular device? I assume it is. But I thought you kind of made it back into the bigger, broader thing. If this was it during the day, I'd say, yeah, great, I'll have a pint with you afterwards. But I'm not going to spend my business day worrying about this. Sorry.
Yeah, very good, yeah.
Yeah, I sort of felt that it kind of wasn't a pitch, if you know what I mean. And we did say that having some question in there is a good thing, but that was nearly all question.
And not product.
And not enough information to engage in.
Yeah.
Our business,
how it might work.
okay. So now I'll do the pitch for the VCs. Our business plan will do 2 million in the first year, 8 million in the second year, and up to 20 million in the third year. Okay? And it will be profitable within 1 year. Okay? It requires 2.5 million of investment. And now at that level, they're starting to say, oh, okay, tell me more about it now. Okay, no, I just wanted to kind of demonstrate, the real issue, and the reason I'm actually talking about it all is, it is a real challenge. I don't know whether any of you have read the book called The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, right? This issue about how do you turn these people in developing worlds into entrepreneurs? How do you give them the technology into their own hands? And how can you put enough margin in the technology so it's self-sustaining? So I just wanted to raise the issues because these are issues I face. So thank you for the audience.
You should talk. There's a really great program and a lot of money available in Stanford.
Stuart
Right.
Stuart Coulson is heavily involved in it.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much.
Would you mind? Sorry. Would you mind posting that book on the LeanCamp/Dublin 1 on the session? Because then people can refer to it from there. Thanks. So somebody should be kicking us out of here already, but it hasn't happened. So I have to go do LeanCamp management stuff. But if somebody wants to go up again next time and someone wants to take over for me on the canvas, I've got to go. So are we done? You time? Oh no, sorry, that's it. It's time. Kanban, when you see Kanban, that's great.